Next up in the Heat Check series is junior Arkansas forward Adou Thiero. Thiero is in the growth spurt mold, blossoming some in high school and even some in college, filling out to a confirmed 6'6" barefoot with a lengthy 7-foot wingspan and an 8'8" standing reach. He played 2 minimal seasons at Kentucky under John Calipari before following him to Arkansas and breaking out, averaging 15.1 points, 5.8 rebounds, 1.2 assists, 1.6 steals, and 0.7 blocks per game, while shooting 55% overall, 26% from 3, and 69% from the line. He's freshly 21 years old.
Here's how Heat Check works. I'm going to pick a draft prospect and grade them on the most generally important skills and aspects of their game: athleticism, scoring, defense, passing, and playmaking, as well as feel for the game. After those 5, I'll touch on one more skill relative to that prospect that I think is going to have the most impact on their draft stock. That will be deemed the swing skill. Each skill will be graded 1 through 5 on the Heat Check chart, the lowest being freezing and the highest scorching. When it's all said and done, I'll divvy out one final score.
Starting with Thiero's athleticism, I've graded him scorching. Most simply, I think he's one of the best athletes in this class on a variety of different levels, and it'll make his potential NBA translation fairly seamless. He's obviously got size and length at around 6'8" in shoes with a 7-foot wingspan, but is big-bodied and solid as a rock too, listed at 220 with the eye test essentially confirming that. The words that come to mind when watching Thiero in the open court, or even with some open space in the half court, are power and physicality. I think his visible athleticism is somewhat hampered by just how well built he looks, but he's fast with a phenomenal first step relative to his size and can blast off with verticality too. Great things considering his projected play finishing role at the next level. Additionally, he welcomes contact on both ends and can often win those battles with his aggressiveness and frame. He's as strong as an ox, able to bully his way to the paint with relative ease, be it on mismatches or not. Across just 27 games with the Razorbacks, Thiero managed 45 dunks, a strong number that should be indicative of some future NBA success. So to recap, Thiero's long, strong, fast, he can run and jump, overpowers with physicality, and much more. All things that should help him be a day 1 NBA play, and to me, he'll have one of the better frames and athletic skill sets in the league. For Adou Thiero's scoring, I've gone with cool. As previously mentioned, as a strength and athleticism based wing, he'll likely serve primarily as a slasher and play finisher in the NBA, but one that I think should be able to create various advantages due to his combination of size, speed, strength, and general coordination. Across his 27 games with the Razorbacks, Thiero scored 15.1 points per game on solid 55% shooting overall, cashing in on just 25% of his threes. Those aren't scorching numbers for a third-year player, but he made major strides regardless. Given his tools, Thiero is obviously at his best working his way inside, scoring 63% of his points off field goals at the rim, opposed to just 17% on the shakier jumper. He converted a fine 64% of his at-rim attempts and just 49% of his layups, pointing to some needed refinement, though I still think he has more touch than your typical downhill super athlete. His previous on-ball work as a guard has left his handle in a pretty decent shape for his stature, and with a get-up-and-go mindset, Thiero did the bulk of his work in transition, sprinting out ahead to finish plays with veracity. He scored 106 points in transition for a very good grade per synergy, followed up by 91 spotting up, 64 points cutting, and 43 on putbacks, a legit skill that he seems to have in reading the ball off the rim. All in all, mostly doing play finishing things like we touched on, and while he's limited in that way, there's plenty of optionality in the ways he did it, spread fairly even across several play types. We'll touch more on Thiero's outside game later in the video, but it's very much a work in progress as a whole, as showcased by the 25% three-point mark. Overall, I see a projectable skill set in the NBA for Thiero, given his physical dominance and continued room for improvement given his late bloom. Is he going to offer tons of flash or on-ball work? No. But will his size, motor, and bulldozer mentality offer some positive impact as a whole for NBA teams? I think so. Thiero's defensive skill set is one that needs a ton of refinement across the board, but like the rest of his game, he has all the defensive tools in the toolkit to become a highly versatile and disruptive player. Across his 27 games with Arkansas, he averaged 1.6 steals and 0.7 blocks per game, finishing with a 3.4 steal percentage, 2.9 block percentage, and a 4.7 defensive box plus minus, all pretty insane numbers given how raw, for lack of a better word, the tape feels. Thiero's athleticism translates positively to the defensive end of the floor, granting him the mobility, length, and quickness needed to disrupt all over the court. For now, Thiero's a bit of a renegade gambler on defense, invoking chaos by vying for stocks with a frenetic style opposed to smoothness or grace. And while that can work out for him plenty, it's not always a positive and will probably feature a learning curve in the NBA. This area just doesn't seem to have the polish that the others do. The good news is that there's zero questions whatsoever about Thiero's try and motor, and his overall size, athleticism, and strength should help him to continue to be pretty positionally versatile at the NBA level. Good NBA teams will see Thiero's defensive game as malleable, chiseling him down to a big-bodied stopper that creates turnovers through good process opposed to directly. If that doesn't happen though, I lean more the median on Thiero's defensive outcome. For Thiero's passing and playmaking, I've gone with warm. I feel pretty great about his passing outcome, especially relative to what his role will be in the NBA. Across his time at Arkansas, he dished 51 assists to 44 total turnovers, good for 1.9 to 1.7 per game, an essential 1-to-1 assist to turnover ratio, with a decent 14% assist percentage. Thiero's just generally a pretty good passer, despite his brutish game as a whole. He's got some touch, velocity, he seems to be a fine processor of the game, and he's got some pretty sick stuff on tape with the Razorbacks. Of course, his usage was fairly high, but I'm confident you can at least pare this down to a ball-moving, maybe seldom playmaking type niche. He's oddly good at DHOs with really broad shoulders, and has some flair when looking ahead in transition. Some of that freneticism bleeds over here too, with him turning the ball over due to some ambition or just rushing plays. But given all the good, I'd imagine as he carves out his role in the NBA, those things will somewhat fade and you'll be left with a pretty great skill set overall. For Adou Thiero's unquantifiable feel for the game, I've gone with warm. I'm not yet ready to call him a high feel player, just given some of the kinks still needing to be worked out, but I'm also not under the impression Thiero's even close to being a finished product right now. There's enough general lowlights to offer pause in this area, but his guard background mixed with the highlights makes him such a tempting upside bet. This could ultimately be decided by just how willing a team is to pour into his role and overall game early in his career. Adou Thiero's swing skill is very obviously the ranged shooting. Even a moderately workable jumper would make him a dangerous player in the NBA, though he doesn't feel necessarily close to that just yet. Across his 27 games, he hoisted 43 total triples, connecting on just 11 of those for a 26% conversion on just 1.6 threes attempted per game. The shooting form isn't broken, but it's certainly not great. The base is pretty rough, never really facing the basket, with him moving right to left in the air before landing. The actual shooting motion isn't the most fluid, and it's pretty slow. The good news is that Thiero isn't a complete non-shooter, and he seems to at least fire it off with general confidence, but he has a long way to go in becoming a legit outside threat. The grade, I've gone with a grade of 7.5 for Adou Thiero. I think I'll ultimately land quite a bit higher on him than the consensus, given his combination of athleticism, feel, projectable role, and improvability. To go with a pottery analogy, Thiero feels like a freshly molded vase, capable of holding water, in this case getting easy offense and hounding on defense, but a vase that could still stand to be perfected, shaped better, heated, painted, and decorated, refining his finishing and defending, shoring up passing shortcomings, developing a real three-point shot. Ultimately, I'm more than willing to bet on Thiero's clay. That's it for this one. Let me know what you think of Adou Thiero, what you grade him, where you draft him, drop who you want to see in the next heat check, and we'll see you next time.